right, welcome to reading number 4 of How to Lose a Planet, the Afro-Future Epic, still in Chapter 1, Kato, the Prison Break. The floor swarmed with patches of hillhoppers, a spawn of grasshopper DNA which had escaped Earth's destruction but mutated during space travel. As parasitic as mosquitoes and fertile as bunnies, when frenzied and trapped in tight spaces, the red, thumb-sized insects sprouted wings and feasted on each other. Kato looked to the ceiling and saw holes eaten to a trio of rusted pipes. Hillhoppers fell from them like red raindrops. We can leave you here if you like. You can't go back to Gem Pop, and all the seg divisions are infested. He looked at the guard. Even y'all wouldn't. The guard shook his head. No, I wouldn't. Vector, though? Kato grunted. By the way, he told me to tell you he gave you a strike. Said you were being incendiary. Of course he did. The chittering of the hillhoppers clashed with the blaring alarm. The guard held him by his arm and guided him through the bits of open floor space and toward the exit. Try not to step on them, the guard said. If you crush one, the others will climb up your pants leg. Outside, the guard led him to a pod. It reminded him of army freight vehicles, a 3-person cabin in front, the driver's seat already occupied by a guard, and a rusted, boxy bin for prisoners at the rear. He noted the thick tread of the off-road tires. So this is going to be a bumpy ride. Hemorrhoids are guaranteed. The guard guided him toward the rear of the vehicle where Vector stood, holding the door open. Wheel retractions busted. Besides, hovering wastes fuel, and wasting fuel is how you lose a whole planet. Hey, kid, Vector said. He met Vector's gaze with a glare, surprising himself. He stepped up and into the bin. That's another strike. Eat my feet. He saw 3 other inmates already inside, sitting on the benches that lined the walls. He nodded at 2 on the far bench and scowled at the middle-aged, gray-haired inmate sitting on the bench closest to him, looking like he wanted to keep his seat by the door. The inmate lowered his head and slid down the bench, clearing space. Kato sat and stared at Vector again. You want another strike? Vector said. Kato shrugged. If that's the price of rolling. Vector closed and locked the bin's door. The bin had little light other than what passed through the window at the front of the bin and the window fixing the rear door that Vector had shut. Kato coughed from dust in the air, but he was grateful that none of the other inmates stunk. The vehicle rocked as the last guard entered the front cabin. He stared through the bin's rear window. The alarm still blared. There appeared to be at least 1,000 general population inmates idling in the main yard while guards counted them. The pod moved from the curb and stopped, giving him a wide view of the prison. The 4-story main building, the 2-story buildings on either side of the main building, and the infirmary, offices, and trailers at the far left end of the campus. Through the window at the front, he saw past the guards' heads and spied the lowered barrier of the security post in the long black road beyond the barrier, flanked by woods. The barrier lifted and the pod continued, slowly rumbling forward. He looked to the rear again. His eyes watered from sleepiness, and he blamed fatigue when he thought he saw all 4 stories of the prison's main building tremble. He closed his eyes and found as comfortable a position as one could in an iron box. A violent screech drilled into his ears. The noise was so loud that he yelped. The pod stopped suddenly. He wrapped the fingers of his cuffed hands around the edge of the bench to keep his body from lurching too much. He opened his eyes and spotted the prison. The building was spreading at its sides and sinking into giant clouds that floated like ghosts climbing out of graves. Shrieks of twisting metal threaded the clatter of crumbling bricks and the shouts of terrified inmates. He tried to speak but couldn't find his voice. His mouth hung open while he took deep, desperate breaths. A heavy patter erupted. The pod's wall was bursting with holes. He fell to the floor, rolled to his side, squeezed into a fetal position, and almost called out, "Incoming!" Bullets piercing metal was all he could hear until the noise retreated as suddenly as it had arrived.